All right. Am I on? Can you hear me? Welcome in, friends and future friends, to this episode of the Sports and the World podcast. Hope all of you are well and safe out there. No Haley again this week. Hope she'll be back and join us here, back and better than ever on next Thursday. A lot to get to. Of course, talk about before we got on the air. Jesse Minter hires the new head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. Love that hire. I'll get into that. Um, Yeah, something a friend of mine, a buddy friend of the show, Tanya Ray Fox, talked about on Threads. If you're not following on social media, please do. She had this very interesting kind of situation, and I really like because it emphasizes a point that I talked about kind of years. I say I kind of hit upon, and Tanya Ray Fox just, as usual, knocks it out of the park. So, uh, so let's just get into. I want to talk a little unrivaled basketball before we get started. Of course, I'm a Breeze fan. Season's going very well. The Breeze, listen, split their last two games. Um, listen, Paige Beckers is showing why she's Paige Beckers, and I think with all the conversation, we talk about Caitlin Clark and we talk about like Paige Beckers is an all around player. She's top. Yeah, she's the top in the assists. She's up there in assists, points, total points. So she's doing a great job there, and I hope he can come back. But I just want to just give a shout out to the Breeze, give a shout out to Unrivaled, because I think there will be a WNBA season. I really do believe that. A part of me really stands by that schedule release, and then we get Paige and Caitlin opening night. So hopefully we get that as well. I'm just going to talk about more Unrivaled as the time goes by. But listen, we got a lot of football to get into. And like I mentioned, Jesse Minter hired as the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, the fifth hire this season. And here's the thing here's why I love the hire. Because to me, I still think it was the best job available, even when the Buffalo job opened. I still felt that job was the best job because of Lamar Jackson. And Jesse Minter's job, like, he has familiarity. He was on the Baltimore staff. So when you have Lamar Jackson, you got to fix the defense. And I think Jesse's going to bring in a great offensive staff. That's always the key. I don't care if you're a defensive-minded head coach, you're bringing in a solid offensive staff. And if you're offensive, going to bring in a solid defensive staff. But what makes the Jesse Minter hire interesting is the simple fact that, you know, they put an emphasis on defense. And this is going to tie me into another point, another job hire that took place to talk about. But the fact of the matter is that the Jesse Minter hire is great. The John Harbaugh hiring, okay. Like my number one concern is, can he develop Jackson Dart? That's pretty much it. And he has a great base there. But my question is, can he help Jackson Dart? Because he had Lamar. You couldn't get Lamar to a Super Bowl. And I will still stand on that principle no matter what. Robert Saleh to the Titans is very nice. Because I don't think he got a fair shake with the Jets. And people can argue with me. That defense for the Jets under Robert Saleh was fantastic. They didn't have a quarterback. And now he goes to a situation where you have Cam Ward. You can develop Cam Ward. You have all this cap space in the world. And number 4 overall pick. It eerily reminds me of the New England Patriots with the Patriots job, where they had a top 5 pick. They had tons of cap space, and they went out there. They hired Mike Vrabel, went out, used their first pick to protect Drake May, their franchise quarterback, and getting Will Campbell. And I think with Saleh in that approach, I think you're going to see something similar to that. I think it's a great hire. I think he could fix that defense and turn that defense around like how Mike Vrabel did in New England this season. Now, here's the thing. Like, I'll talk about the Dolphins. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Sometimes my microphone will be really iffy. But here's something that's very interesting to me. To me, I don't think that job is super divine. Listen, they have a number 11 pick, but they have no cap. And is Tua going to be the quarterback? Jeff Hafley's one of his decisions is, yeah, you got to fix that defense. But who's going to be your quarterback in 2026? Because even with the 11th pick, outside of Fernando Mendoza, I'm hearing talks of Ty Simpson. There's Tristan Chambliss out there. Listen, and I know a lot of Miami Dolphins fans, so I'm not down in the franchise. It's like, it cost Mike McDaniel his job because he couldn't turn it around. And it makes me go back to Brian Flores and say maybe Brian Flores was right. Maybe he was right about Tua. And it's easy to kind of sit back and ignore it. But penultimately, it's a conversation that kind of needs to be talked about. Is that if you're expecting Jeff Hafley, who comes from a Green Bay defensive coordinator, that's what he has to figure that out. And or more specifically, is Quinn Ewers the guy? Because there's a reason why McDaniel benched Tua to see what this Quinn Ewers kid can do. I'm not saying he set the world on fire, but he didn't do terrible. So these are the questions, and these are the things that I found that hiring, because I'm very shocked people took that job. And like I say, Godspeed to Jeff Hafley. So now the openings, we have the Steelers, the Raiders, the Browns, the Cardinals, and the Bills. Well, here's the thing with the Bills. Now we know about the Keon Coleman situation. Let me tell you something. I love Bills Mafia very much. But the way they disrespected Keon Coleman, if he doesn't show up, if they trade him or they good. In terms of, he doesn't need that because he was thrown under the bus in that press conference. And the fact that Brandon Beane still has a job. You fire Sean McDermott, but who was there with Sean McDermott during this process? Brandon, he's drafted these players. You didn't give Josh Allen receivers. And this feels like a similar problem that was happening in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. Wasn't getting receivers, and Zay Flowers, maybe a lot of people don't see him as a one, but listen, they did something. And the fact that you disrespect Keon Coleman, what has Brandon Beane done to get this team better? You trade Stephon Diggs, which, okay, worked out both sides. If you want to, the offense feels a little bit better, more free. But the fact of the matter is Brandon Beane helped draft this roster, and he's still gainfully employed. And that's very concerning. And it should be very concerning. Because at the end of the day, penultimately, what are we doing? Because at the end of the day, there's to me a lot more questions. Now with Buffalo, now it's the front office, and you start to see this. You wonder how successful businesses are. Oh, great business plans, great strategies. Until you see the business crumble. Until you see people leave and, oh maybe it's not as great as it was. And this Buffalo organization, listen, Josh Allen has been the Flex Seal to this organization. He's the Flex Seal. He's covered up all of this. But here's the thing. I'm not saying Sean McDermott, listen, it was expected to happen, and I spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. If this team could not get to the Super Bowl, he was going to go because this was the best opportunity with no Lamar and no Patrick Mahomes. I'm not putting Joe Burrow in this. I'm not putting her. I'm putting in a playoffs with no Lamar and no Mahomes. Josh Allen was easy to and listen. Josh Allen did a lot of stuff for his own doing. He unraveled, but nonetheless, that defense didn't do him any favors as well. So we can split that up how we ever want to in that side of the conversation. But at the end of the day, that Buffalo job, I'm not saying it's a terrible job. All I'm conjecturing is that whoever takes that job, and maybe there's a reason why Clint Kubiak is still out there. He could have went to Atlanta, which we'll talk about. Listen, we're thinking they're going to get a big name. If you're Buffalo, what makes this job attractive is the very same reason why Lamar Jackson, the Ravens job, it was because of Lamar Jackson. That's why the Ravens job was attractive. Because that's a defensive, they got to fix that. Buffalo, that defense, and you got to get talent around Josh Allen. outside of James Cook and maybe, the tight ends and Keon Coleman, who was your best receiver and Khalil Shakir. And then you throw Keon Coleman under the bus. Brandon Beane should have been fired right there. And Terry Pegula, and there's a history. If you look at the lawsuit that the NFL with, I believe it was Jim Trotter, that talked about Terry Pegula. I'll let you guys Google and look it up. But let me tell you something. It's not good. And Buffalo's a great city. It's a great set of fan base. But I speak this similarly in the same capacity where I talk about the Browns. Like the fan base is loyal, win, lose, or draw. You got to do better in ownership. And the Jets, you can throw the Jets in that conversation too. Where I love the fan bases, I just don't like who's sitting in the owner's box. So when you break down and you look at these remaining jobs, I still like the Bills. Okay, fine. The Steelers is not a terrible job either. I think the Steelers' job is a very good job because it's continuity. I think be on the lookout for the Rams passing game coordinator, Nate Scholastic. Oh man, me and names. Be on the lookout for that name. I think Brian Flores is the name to kind of be on the lookout for. So yeah. So before we're gonna take a quick break because I gotta do something. I want to come back. This is gonna be a relatively short show today because for whatever reason I feel like for it to be a short show. I do want to kind of talk about, like, my buddy Tanya Ray Fox, like I've mentioned. She talked about something on Threads that I found very interesting, and it's about Dak Prescott. It's about Shador, and I'm all for that talk. So, friends and future friends, we're going to be right back with continuing with the episode of the Sports in the World podcast. In the meantime, please drop your questions in the chat. More than happy to answer them. And I'll see you on the back end soon. All right. Sure, I am back. Sorry about that. So let me see, get my audio. If you guys can hear me, that'd be great. Um, Welcome back. Sorry about that little delay. Like I said, I make the show relatively short today because I really want to talk about the NFL. I was going to talk about LeBron and stuff, but I'm like, nah, because my thoughts on that is pretty straightforward. It's like I saw Colin Harris talking about, oh, we should trade LeBron. I think that's just silly. I think it's just silly, personally. But nonetheless, here we are. Let's put a button on the show with something my buddy, a friend of this show, Tanya Ray Fox. She talked about a situation that I found to be very, very interesting, and a trade dynamic that I found very interesting. And so I want to run it by you. And here to get your thoughts on it, because I think it's a very interesting deal. And it involves Dak Prescott. So shout out to Tanya Ray Fox, Tanya Ray _Fox on Threads. Give her a follow. All social media, bro. Hope you get her on the show back soon. But she talked about a quarterback swap, and it's interesting. And more specifically, I love the location, and I'll get into that. So babe, let's get into it. She said Shedeur should go to Dallas, her cousins to the Browns, Dak to the Vikings. Here's the thing. Here's why I love Dak to the Vikings. As you look at the NFC North, the Vikings defense was pretty good under Brian Flores. It was fantastic. But there was no continuity at the quarterback position. I'm not saying, oh, let's give up, JJ McCarthy. Listen, injuries and stuff like that. But, let's be under Kevin O'Connell. There's been no consistency on the quarterback position. And I'm not here to say whether JJ McCarthy is not the guy or the guy. I'm not here to pass judgment one way or the other. But nonetheless, I do think it's interesting because, and I know Cowboy fans may not want to hear this, but it may be that conversation. Because like I said, I love Dak. I really do. But I didn't love the contract because at that particular time, I didn't like it. In retrospect, he, restructure and all of that, but I didn't like it at the time because of the resume. So, because they got into an NFC Championship game, and we're already like, I didn't like the deal, and it seems that as great as Dak is, I don't see the Cowboys reaching anything beyond, and it's not his fault. I think they've peaked. People say, oh, they have CD and they have great talent. But what we've learned is that when you have a great quarterback, you have two great receivers, that's great. It's fantastic. But this is why I was against the Bengals giving T. Higgins money when you're paying Joe Burrow and you're paying Jamar Chase, because you neglect your defense. And they traded away Micah. Yes, they got first-round picks, but you had a sure thing in Micah. So that kind of let me know that they're open. I'm not saying Jerry should trade Dak this offseason, but listen, having Shedeur in Dallas fits exactly what Jerry Jones really wants. He wants a personality at that position. Am I saying Shedeur is going to go out there first? What I'm saying is that Shedeur in Dallas makes sense. Brian Schottenheimer is not a terrible coach, but I don't really think certain things about the coaching either. I think it simply boils down to you need to start that position. And I think for Dallas fans, it's a love-hate thing for two reasons. Because it's the Cowboys, and two, because of the market he's in. And any quarterback who is under center of the Dallas Cowboys gets scrutinized, one form or another. And I'm not sitting here and saying Dak is terrible. I think Dak needs somewhere different. I think Dak somewhere in Minnesota where you get a guy who has a resume and a reputation of working with great quarterbacks. He's under, and then like Tanya Ray Fox mentioned, under that kind of like that McVay Stafford relationship. And that's the reason why Sean McVay traded for Matthew Stafford, is that I need a veteran guy under center, experience, necessarily maybe not the greatest playoff success, but I know can be a great quarterback in my system. It's the same story, except the difference is that the Rams were able to ship off Jared Goff to Detroit, and I don't think that Minnesota should ship off JJ McCarthy. I just think that it's a conversation to be like you need someone to kind of sit behind. You need JJ to sit behind a guy like Dak, and given the you don't have to give him a long-term deal. Like the contract speaks for itself. But I think penultimately, so back to my point. I don't think that's a terrible deal. I think Dallas just has to hit the reset at quarterback, whether we want to admit that or not. And I think it's a fair conversation to have. People are going to say, "Oh, you're saying Dak is terrible." No. A change of scenery can do wonders. Matthew Stafford, listen, he went from Detroit, and Detroit at that time was not a great franchise, and he goes to the Rams, beacon of light with Sean McVay, and all of a sudden, he gets to a Super Bowl and wins it. And now they're a game away from getting back to the Super Bowl. So the whole point is that there's similarities here. Minnesota in that division, think about the division. The Bears had a great run, but what happened? Ben Johnson was able to get the best out of Caleb Williams. And the defense was great for what it was. But the Vikings arguably had the best defense in that division, but maybe the fourth best quarterback because their quarterback wasn't healthy. So imagine if Minnesota had a healthy quarterback and continuity at that position. We would be talking about the Vikings to the Super Bowl. Those are the conversations we would definitely have. And in that same similar vein, I kind of look at the situation with Shedeur to the Cowboys. It's like, hey, Shedeur is not terrible. And it ties into this talk about what Kevin Stefanski didn't like. No. And I want to address this. I keep saying, maybe just in the Falcons group that I'm in on Facebook and then on social media, other social media platforms. But we got to chill with calling this man a racist. Because when you call somebody that, you better have proof to back it up. Because it's a very serious allegation. Are there racists still out there in the world today? Absolutely. And you can track the record as long as the scroll, as long as the Dead Sea Scrolls, it's that long. And even longer than that. So I just wanted to get that in as well because that was another talking point I had. It's like, am I saying Kevin Stefanski is the world's greatest coach? No. He was hired because of his track record. I'm not going to talk about the Coach of the Year awards. The whole thing with Baker, I think Baker is directing his anger at the wrong person because the front office traded you. Kevin Stefanski didn't trade you. The front office did. So at the end of the day, and going back to the Stefanski thing, I don't necessarily am going to subscribe to that. Now, I hear people talk about Stefanski and the hire, but I understand the hire because it ties into the Shedeur situation. Whether we like it or not, Shedeur didn't look terrible under Stefanski. The problem was that I genuinely feel that, listen, Dylan Gabriel was Stefanski's guy, and maybe Shedeur was the front office's guy. And because why in the world would you draft two quarterbacks so close together in the draft? Why would you draft two quarterbacks in general? But it's the Browns, but still. Not saying it's unprecedented, but but still nonetheless. But I just wanted to get that out of the way about Kevin Stefanski because I'm not here defending. I don't have to defend his record or his resume or anything like that. But I just want to put it out there that we got to move forward. He's the guy. I understand why Matt Ryan. If you heard the press conference, they want an offensive guy. Like, listen, if all the cards are on the table, I'd prefer Kubiak, even Salah. If that's the direction they were going, we got John Brooks. I'm sorry, but they're not ignoring you. We got what up, bro? How you doing, John? And John talks about, so what up, LaDarius, bro? I'm gonna admit I'm over this drunk with Stefanski. Stefanski is here now. We have to ride the people with him. Just exactly. It's just rhetoric. It's just fodder. And at this point, the question is that my biggest concern is that now we got to make sure Michael Penix is healthy. What are they going to do with the quarterback situation? Because with our buddy C-Double, like I was talking to him after the whole hiring, and listen, I thought Kirk Cousins staying was a lock, but once again, I see the threads, and I talk like maybe not, and I get it, but nonetheless, Kirk Cousins to Cleveland, good, because if you look at their success. Or not even their success. If you look at their position, like they don't lean toward mobile quarterbacks, which is surprising when they got Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur, because those guys are mobile and they were great in college. I'd argue Shedeur was better in college, but I'm not going to get down that route again. So Kirk Cousins to Cleveland makes sense. I think that's where he should have went the last offseason, to be honest. And we wouldn't be having this Shedeur Sanders conversation. But we probably would have, because at some point, Stefanski would have probably sat down Kirk Cousins and said, now we're going to go with Shedeur. Like I always say, I'm pro Shedeur, and I said this predicting like on RotoWire earlier this year, where I said like the major prediction I had, and listen, predictions can be wrong because I wasn't right about everything. But I did say Shedeur would start the most games with the Cleveland Browns. He would start. Because you don't draft a guy and not see what he has. Because at the end of the day, I think the upside for Shedeur is there. And I think whoever takes that Browns job, I think you should rock with Shedeur. Especially, you look at this quarterback class, outside of Mendoza, maybe Ty Simpson, who are you looking to draft? That's a legitimate question. And then John jumps in and further notes, I hope Penix is ready for the season. If not, we're in deep trouble. Yes, we are, but it really depends on what happens with Kirk Cousins and what's the plan B, what's in case of emergency. Because I have a feeling he's not going to be ready for the start of the season. I'm not a doctor. I'm not Denzel from St. Elsewhere. I know I'm dating myself because I like watching old shows. Listen, I'm not ER. I'm not none of that. But we have to see what the contingency plan is. And until we have some more clarity in that regard, then we can start having that sort of conversation. But going back to Shedeur to Dallas, I would think it'd be a great move. It feels like a Jerry Jones move. It feels like a Jerry Jones type move to make. So I'm not upset. And then the other part of that trade that I think I covered all three. Like of these trades, like of these situations. Listen, Dak to Minnesota. I just love it. Because I didn't love the deal that Dallas gave him. I understand why. You got to pay the quarterback. I didn't love the deal at the time, given his resume. I think Dak's a top 10 quarterback in this league. In some case, you could make the case that he's top 5 in a couple of seasons. Like outside of his injury year when he got hurt early on in the season, he's not been a terrible quarterback. But when they traded Micah Parsons, I feel it's open season. I think I'm not saying, hey, trade Dak this offseason. All I'm conjecturing is that I would entertain it. What you get back is interesting. Because think about it, Dallas has multiple first-round picks. So could they could use that as leverage if they see a quarterback that they like. Let's just say, hypothetically, throwing things against the wall. Arch Manning comes out in 2020. They package a deal for whoever is the worst team in the league that year. We want the top pick. Because Dallas can say that we're rebuilding the defense which they very well need to do. But if Dallas does not break that ceiling where they are, I would not be shocked if you entertain a deal about Dak. People get mad, people get angry. I listen. I'm not anti-Cowboys. Listen, I'm dealing with stuff with my Falcons. So that's the other thing about, and we got John jumping in here as well saying if Kirk wants to go to Cleveland, more power to him. I think Kirk is sticking around for a while. Yeah, he's like Biff in Back to the Future. Listen, Biff, let me tell you something. Solid character. Like you're not supposed to like the villains, but he's one of the villains that I enjoy. Not but for different reasons. But I think for this Falcons team, like going back to the Falcons, like this, like it ties back to Stefanski, the Browns, and all that. Kevin Stefanski, like Cleveland's having a hard time getting a guy, so they thought this job was attractive, but is it though? Is it? And penultimately, I'd argue maybe it's not as attractive as we thought it was. And here's my point. And this is where I go right back, and we're going to look at Stefanski's resume. And I'm not saying, oh, well, his resume is not like, we're going to look at it and have a conversation. That's all I ask before we put a button on this show. Is to have a very important conversation. So we look at Kevin Stefanski. Well, I don't know why he's not ahead. So let's put it like this. Oh, I had it pulled up and I have it pulled up and then I just hit the wrong button. America, I'm doing great today, aren't I? So you look at the situation with Cleveland. You look at Kevin Stefanski. Now, am I sitting here saying that, like I said, I'm not saying Stefanski is all-time great, but when you look at the coaches in the history of the Cleveland Browns, and you look at the games above, he didn't have a great record. And I get it's disappointing. He's 45-56, and that's the fourth most wins in the franchise history. And he's and of the coaches, like it's more wins than Marty Schottenheimer, Bill Belichick, but he's the fourth most wins. And this is not me defending, but so you look at the losses, he has the most losses as any coach with the Cleveland Browns. You look at the playoffs, just one win. And I get it. I totally get it. Like I said, I'm not here to defend the man's record. All I'm saying is that when you peel it back, you peel back the Cleveland Browns, he had he had 2 winning seasons. People are like, oh, you're downing your quarter. You're downing your new head coach. No. I'm laying out the facts. This is the stuff I hear. But you look at the quarterback market, the head coaching market out there, outside of John Harbaugh, who I didn't want here. Because listen, I said it once, I wanted Bill Belichick. I wanted Bill Belichick here before they hired Raheem Morris. And people were like, oh, well, his resume and da. No, we're not playing. We're not doing it. We're not doing it. Because I argued and contended then that he should have been the guy, not Raheem. Because we argue about the Belichick and Brady. Oh, well, maybe Brady was who drafted Brady? Bill Belichick. Remember when Drew Bledsoe got hurt? And this kid named out of Michigan named Tom Brady came in, play pretty well. Drew Bledsoe got healthy. And Bill Belichick had a choice that literally changed a franchise and the history of that franchise. He stuck with Tom Brady. And Drew Bledsoe stuck around for a while. Eventually he moved on, got moved on to Buffalo. He stuck around a bit. But my point is that Bill, listen, they won. Now, I'm not comparing Belichick to Stefanski. All I'm saying is that sometimes the record is not all what it appears to be. Because just like I mentioned with Bill Belichick, just like I mentioned, you want to know Bill Belichick's record pre New England? You want to know what his record was in terms as a head coach? Because listen, by the way, he didn't coach a game for the Jets. So for the same Cleveland Browns, for 5 seasons he was 36-44, but got them one more playoff win than Kevin Stefanski did. So my point in closing is that understand the context, because Bill Belichick, before he became Cleveland's head coach, he was the defensive coordinator for those great Giants teams under Bill Parcells that won multiple Super Bowls. He was the defensive coordinator after he left Cleveland. He spent 3 seasons, was it 3? Yeah, 3 seasons as their DC. But specifically, go back to that time with the Giants. So before we jump down Stefanski's throat, at the end of the day, all I'm saying is this applies to life, football, or whatever. Sometimes we have to go deeper, because what's in front of us, maybe that's not all the story. And listen, like, and you look at these head coaches, like for Jeff Hafley, it could work out in Miami. It's an uphill battle there. And I hope Stephen Ross and that front office gives them time. I wish it for any of these guys. But it seems when we talk about like for the Steelers, to me, I think Brian Flores makes sense. To me, it makes I think Brian Flores deserves that same second chance that Robert Saleh is getting. I really do. Because Brian Flores was not terrible. He was not terrible. Because you look at his time with the Dolphins. Listen, he went 24-25. His last 2 seasons were winning seasons. And he's done great. And so, and the job he's done turning around this Vikings team is fantastic. So that's my message. Is that we talk about Stefanski, he's going to get a second chance. Saleh getting that second chance. I think Brian Flores to get that second chance. And I would like to see Brian Flores in Pittsburgh. I think he fits to me, I think it kind of fits. But like, he's not getting the Bills job. I'm telling you that much. And listen, I'm going to say this, and I may be out of line for saying this, because I love Bill's mom. Like I said, that does not feel friendly front office wise in the ownership box for a minority head coach. Because you think about it, in their great illustrious history, and then with the Terry Pagula and the lawsuit from Jim Trotter, like, go check it out. That's all I'm saying. It's why Brian Flores will not be the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. It's a better chance that he could go to the Raiders. The Raiders are still in play. I still listen. I think Brian Flores is the guy to look out for. The passing game coordinator for the Rams is the name to look out for now. And great black offensive minds out there. Where's Byron Leftwich? David Shaw was a great NFL experience. Went to Stanford, won at a place collegiately that's not been, not known for football. Had success there. You got Anthony Lynn. I think these are just names I'm throwing out there for minority, head, but they're also great coaches. Byron Leftwich should be a head coach, and people could sit down and talk about, you know, I'm trying to find a way to kind of phrase it. Like, oh, maybe, he had Tom Brady. Well, listen, Josh McDaniels with Tom Brady in head coaching struck out once, twice, and back with the Patriots. I'm gonna leave it at that. He also had Charlie Weiss. Went to Notre Dame. Listen, we all know what happened there. I'm not gonna go down there because I argued up and down about that. People ain't gonna like it, but I argued about it. And we have John here saying that there's a question. Do you think Raheem goes to the building? Raheem is an excellent defensive coordinator. And there are just some coaches who are built just to be coordinators. Back in the day, I kind of felt that way about Norv Turner. Or if you look at Norv Turner's success, and I think Norv, when he was offensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys back in the day, I'm not saying was a terrible head coach, but he didn't have a winning record. Like, think about this. Like, in the years, he coached 15 years as a head coach. 15. You want to know how many winning seasons he had? He had 1, 2, if you want to get 3. Well, we'll count it. He was fired after week 14 back in 2000. So we're not going to, we'll still count it because he had a winning record. We'll count it. I'm a nice guy. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of those 15 years, he had a winning record. His overall record is 114, 122, and 1. And he had 7 years in Washington and 6 years in San Diego. He was the guy that replaced Marty Schottenheimer. And you want to know what Marty Schottenheimer's record was when he got fired? 14-2. 14-2. And Marty Schottenheimer. See, look at Marty Schottenheimer's resume. Listen, 200 wins? Should be in the Hall of Fame. It's hard to win. It's hard to win 150. It's hard to win 100 games. Yes, 200. So I talk about these great coaches. He replaced a guy who, at 5 years at San Diego, 47-33. Yes, 2 playoff appearances, but he got fired after 14-2. Because if I'm not mistaken, because Nate Kading missed the field goal in the division round against the Patriots. So coaching, there's no exact science to it. But my point is that, like, what I feel about Raheem Morris, I think Raheem Morris is a great defensive-minded guy. But I do believe that I want to see Brian Flores. I want to see, I want to see Byron Leftwich. I want to start seeing something different. And listen, Nate Shalat, the Rams passing game quarter, I want to see him get a shot. I want to see these guys get decent shots, because at this point, who wants to be the coach of the Browns? That Browns job could be very, 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 very interesting. And of course, before we get here, there are two games to talk about, and I'll just be real quick because here's the thing. I'm big in the Patriots, and like Sean Payton's the reason. That's all I'm going to say. Even before the whole Jarrett Stidham, Bo Nix thing, yeah, I'm going with New England. Because listen, America's birthday, 250th birthday. Happy birthday, America. Maybe not the birthday you like because of what's going on in the world, but it's still America's birthday. NFC, we're getting Rams Seahawks part 2. I like Seattle. And I gave all this praise to Sean McVay, but Mike McDonald, that defense, I don't know. It's going to be close. So basically what I'm telling you is that I like a Patriots Seahawks Super Bowl. Have we seen that Super Bowl before? Yes, we have. And I hope this time, if Seattle is there, you get in the red zone, you don't throw the ball. But that's just me. But friends and future friends, I've taken up enough of your time this evening. Thank you for watching and listening to this episode of the Sports in the World podcast. Follow the podcast on social media. You can follow it on Facebook. The Facebook page is there. I'm going to work on it. The 2 previews for the games will be up by Saturday. Follow me on social, LaDarius_Brown on Twitter and TikTok, LaDarius_Brown on Instagram. And friends and future friends, until you see and hear me again next time, we'll have our Super Bowl 60 matchup lineup the next time we speak again. And until then, I'm LaDarius. Be real, be you, be blessed, and be safe from all of us here from the Sports and the World podcast.